Hello. Did you see my video yesterday, my Facebook Live yesterday, of the part one of why I do what I do? Today is part two. So I thought I would just begin again with talking about story. So everyone has many different stories, and I believe that you can completely change them. That if you have the will and the curiosity, you can change your story. And so one of my stories that's led me to where I am now is that I grew up and have always, ever since I was a little child, had a lot of questions. And I challenged. I always needed to know and understand why things were the way that they were. And that wasn't always well received, because by asking lots of questions, it could often be responded to as if I was challenging somebody, as far as challenging their authority or being resistant to something. And so it would be shut down. I would be told that it was bad, to stop asking questions, to just do something. And that felt really awful for me, because I needed to know, I wanted to understand. And I also came into this world loving magic and miracles. But that didn't last long, because as the oldest child in the family, I was told that I was the eldest, so I needed to, hi Pumzile, so I was the eldest and I needed to be the one who took care of my brother and sister, that I needed to be the role model and the example for them. I was the eldest, I should know better. So I was made to grow up more quickly, hi Sophie, more quickly than I should have been. Magic and miracles weren't encouraged, they weren't practical. That was another common theme. For Christmas and birthday presents, I'd want something, maybe sparkly or fun or different, whatever I wanted, but instead I'd get something that was practical, because, money couldn't be spent on frivolous things. They weren't only practical things. So I grew up not embracing this curiosity, but still asking questions, still wanting to know the answers, and not being able to have my magic and miracles. And what that formed was a protective barrier around me. Whenever you are unable to allow yourself to be your true version of yourself, whenever it's not allowed to be supported and to expand, you often put a protective barrier around yourself, which might be like an armor around yourself, because you don't want to get hurt. It's a way of protecting yourself, protecting your heart from being hurt. And so the other element was that I was extremely sensitive. I felt everything deeply. But again, that wasn't allowed, because I had to toughen up. I was the eldest. I needed to take care of the little ones. And of course, the little ones didn't like that, because I wasn't their mother. I couldn't tell them what to do. So from my parents, I was doing the wrong thing. And from my siblings, I was doing the wrong thing. So again, I was isolated. And so the way that I dealt with that was I shut down. And I protected myself with my armor. And what I realized as I became older and became an adult, and some of those events happened that I shared in part one, was it led me to shut down my heart and completely go into my head. So the curiosity remained, and of course I always had my strength there that I shared in part one, and that strength and that curiosity came out as a deep wanting to still know things and curiosity, but it all came from my head. So I needed to know the reasons why, and I rationalized everything. Absolutely rationalized anything. I was completely disconnected from my body, and in my head, and I would do lists, pros and cons lists, and could never make a decision because I was so far in my head that I could never make a decision as to what would be right and what would be wrong. And I was stuck there. And that lasted with me for a lifetime until I made the decision to move away from that. And that magic and miracles, I always loved watching murder shows like LA Law, Law and Order and things, and all the really old ones, and witch shows like Charmed and things. I would just absorb them and watch them for ages. And I never understood why until I started this personal development journey that in my early 30s. And for me, with the combination of three things where I was completely in my head, shut down from my body, not connected to my heart, with this coat of armor around me, protecting me, and needing to question everything and understand everything and wanting to rationalize it in my head to know the answers, I had completely shut down that magic and miracles. I completely shut down that belief in something being bigger. How could there be? I couldn't see it. I had a very negative view of religion, which also came from my parents, or one parent. But I had shut down. So unless I could physically see the evidence shown to me, I didn't believe it. So when I had this, bit of a crisis in my 30s around, what am I going to do now? I'm not married, having bad relationships, not happy in my job, etc., and went out and started addressing some of these things and understanding those beliefs and how everything linked together. It was a massive step for me because I had to learn to have faith and trust. Trust in something that I couldn't see and couldn't understand as I started to explore. But what got me through was this curiosity, this questioning, this challenging that I had always had, like the inner strength, that was not embraced and encouraged and was something that I felt bad about doing for that, actually has become, again, one of my strongest strengths. It's a gift. So as I started to follow this process of wanting to change myself because I didn't like myself and trying to understand why I had made the choices that I had made and what had gotten me to where I was, and I started to see, as I looked behind me, all of the things that had led to this moment, to this event, I had to challenge and move out of my head and into my heart, because it's only from a place of your heart that you can learn to have faith and trust. And so for me, because I was so far on the other scale of being in my head and also having this questioning and this, I found that the gift that I had of the curiosity and the questioning actually was my gift, because as I started to understand where these beliefs came from and why I was behaving or making choices that I was making choices, and how these events had showed up and what I had learned from them, it started to make sense. It finally started to make sense for me. I finally started to be able to see the big picture. And that's something that I am really good at. I have always known stuff. I've always had just knowing things before they happened, that deep sense of understanding and knowing. Hi, Margie. And it started to make sense because I could see the big picture. I could see, it's like for me when I see, events, I can see like a big jigsaw, and I can see at a really high level how things are playing out, on an energetic playing board, basically. And so what it did is I moved into my heart and I opened up and used that curiosity as a gift, used that questioning and need to know as a gift and embraced it. I moved further and further through that path, and quickly. And that's something that has led me to doing the coaching, because what I began to understand was that interest that I had in programs like Charmed and the magic and the miracles was actually a really strong connection to a universal energy that I have, a strong knowing that comes from that and from a really deep connection with my higher self. And that is something that I couldn't find a place for. It has shown up as an adult as people just coming to me and telling me stuff, telling me things about what's happened to them, and instantly feeling comfortable with me to be able to share their deepest stories and events, and people in the street, people I didn't know. And it's something that I had to become comfortable with. And so part of that was going and getting my coaching qualifications. And now I'm able to combine that with what I call a spiritual mentor, because I can't really think of another name for it at the moment. But what it's meaning is that this ability that I have to see the bigger picture, to see the bigger picture in your life path, your purpose, when maybe you can't. Just like me, where maybe you don't see how all the pieces have come together. You can't see how all of the experiences that you've had have led you to this place, and those things that you haven't liked about yourself, that perhaps they're actually gifts, and most likely they are gifts that you just haven't learned to use yet, to use in the way that they were meant and intended to be used. So that is part 2 of why I do what I do. It's that, I have gone through that process and that path of connecting in with, coming out of my head and connecting into my heart, and allowing myself to break down that armor around me to be able to experience and live my life from a completely different place, and to embrace the gifts that I have that I always thought were a burden, that weren't encouraged and supported as I grew up as a child. And now I understand the part that they have to play in my life moving forward. And so I love working with people to help them to have that same experience, and to understand and to open up and embrace those gifts that you have, and to be able to see the bigger picture for you and for the future, and how those gifts actually can be used to create the life that you were truly meant to live. So that is part 2 of why I do what I do. If you've got any questions, please put them below and I would love to answer them. And keep watching for part 3, because everyone has different layers. Everyone's had different experiences, and I believe that every experience you had is linked back to some kind of lesson or learning. There's something there for you to understand and know that will help you on your journey, on your path forward to get to where you need to go. And that's what I help you to unlock, so that you can live that journey and that path. So I've shared 2 stories so far of mine, and how that has changed and what I've gotten out of those experiences. And I look forward to sharing some more with you. Keep an eye out for part 3. Have a fabulous day. Bye for now.